sometimes when Poles start behaving like Russians, we react. Imagine how much money Russia is spending today in Washington, D.C., trying to take those Republicans or sometimes even Democrats to their side. You have to use your immigration in each state as an army. Join forces with Lithuanian community that I know is ready for that, with Baltic community, with the Jewish community, with American Jewish Council, with Cuban community who hates communists, and fight for Ukraine.
Welcome to the Black Sky. My name is Piotr Mateusz Bobołowicz, and our guest today is Žygimantas Pavilionis, chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee in Lithuanian Seimas, and former ambassador of Lithuania to United States and Mexico. Good morning.
Thank you. My pleasure.
We are talking a day before the 3rd of May. 3rd of May, 1791, in Polish history, it's a very important date. We all know what it is, the date of Constitution of the 3rd of May. That's what we call it in Poland. And we celebrate it every year. It's a national holiday. It's a free day, free of work. And I know in Lithuania, although it's not such a holiday, you still have to work on this day, but you commemorate also the Constitution.
Yes, because we do not consider it only as Polish day. It's our day. It's our joint constitution. Behind me, you have our joint king, Zygmunt August. My name is Zygmunt. My son is August. So we share the same history. And when I was ambassador in Washington, D.C., I was always reminding to our sisters and brothers Americans that with our Constitution of 3rd of May, when we turned even more American, because our Constitution was quite close to American ideals, we were annihilated by free autocracies of that time. And that is kind of similar exercise Ukrainians are now trying to do. They try to adopt our civilized rules of laws and game, and they are attacked by different autocracies of today. So history is continuing, and we consider it's common. And yes, we commemorate it. I was one of the deputy foreign ministers to introduce this commemoration to Parliament. We had quite a debate about that, but yes, we commemorate it, and maybe one day we also make it as a festive day.
And it's not the only day Lithuania commemorates its common history with Poland.
Yes, but it's also, you should understand that in Soviet schools during the occupation, our common history was deleted from our minds and souls. Russian KGB was working on two directions: to create conflicts between Lithuanians and Poles, and actually Lithuanians and Jews, at least in our case. Now they do the same between Lithuanians and Belarusians, for example, but that's another story. So everything that was Polish or common in my school books, and I still finished Soviet school, was incarnation of devil. Everything that is worst, and our pagan, pure past of those dukes who were fighting the Christians from the West was like kind of glorified. And we try, of course, now to correct it. We understand that it was another Russian lie. Everything that was coming from Russia was a disaster, including killing of Kalinovsky in front of the windows of current foreign ministry, who was one of our last revolt's heroes. But together with you, we created the medieval European Union, and just yesterday we celebrated, you see, the European flag 20th anniversary of this membership that we joined to the club actually together with you. I was one of those deputy chief negotiators doing it. But, for us, it's nothing new. We did it in Middle Ages. Just today, we have to complete the mission. We have to get Ukrainians and maybe even Belarusians into our European family. This is what Zygmunt Augustus was doing. This is what this Zygmunt is doing together with my Polish brothers and sisters of whoever party, be it Radek Fogel, be it Pavel Koval, be it Bogdan Klich or anyone. We've been doing it from the times of Kwasniewski and late Lech Kaczynski, and this strategic partnership with Poland continues.
But our relations are not only roses and good things. We also have some problems. We have some issues. One of the issues in Polish-Lithuanian relationships for years has been Polish minority in Lithuania. There are many questions, especially from their side, that are quite problematic for them. I'm talking about Polish language schools and surnames. How does it look from Lithuanian perspective?
Well, we have to be careful calling it problematic because, yes, in Lithuania we have the only Polish minority maybe on this planet that is pro-Russian. Because Russians have no Russians in Lithuania to turn against Lithuanian state. And from the very beginning, they were working with Polish minority in Lithuania, Sovietized Polish minority who were wearing all those nice imperial ribbons. And this is a nonsense. I never met Pole who is pro-Russian, but we have them in Lithuania. They are the leaders of so-called Polish party. Not all of them, intellectual Poles, are with us. Poles from Vilnius are with us, but Poles from Vilnius region that Russia was trying to create as kind of Donbass in Lithuania are pro-Russian. Not all of them. Some of them, like in our coalition, we have Justice Minister, who is great, wonderful, young Lithuanian of Polish descent. She represents the Freedom Party, the most liberal party. Unfortunately, this Polish minority is very, very, radical and strange. And when we had great Polish friends from Warsaw coming, especially during the times of Lech Kaczynski, one of the first visits, they were visiting their brothers and sisters Poles and trying to say, stay with Lithuanians. The same John Paul II did. In '93, the Pope that I love, the Pope whose picture is in my office, and my dissertation is about John Paul's fight with communism. So, yes, minorities should connect us, but not divide us. In Lithuania, Poles have the biggest numbers of schools on this planet. Again, more than 100. You will not find any other country in this world that you have better conditions than in Lithuania. But Russians are still working. KGB is still trying to turn Poles against Lithuanians and Lithuanians against the Poles. Well, we have some setbacks, but for example, during this coalition, after 30 years of similar, I would call it stupid debates, we made a vote in the parliament accepting, we call it Polish letters. We don't have those letters in our vocabulary. We opted for Czech vocabulary in the beginning of last century just to make us a bit different from you. But we installed the W, X, and some other letter to our vocabulary. So, let's just be patient. Minorities will always be problematic, but it could also connect. Myself, I would say Pole from Krakow. My family is from 16th century, somewhere from Krakow. I'm Pole who forgot Polish language and now learning it every Monday. But I have also blood of Tatar. I have blood of Lithuanian. I have a blood of Rzeczpospolita. I have a blood of our old empire. So let's better think about what connects us, because remind you, we still have to connect big parts of the region from Baltic to Black Sea. This is our mission. And we better stay united for this mission, because we still have to connect Brussels, London, Paris, Washington, to accomplish this mission and destroy Putin's regime that is our enemy for centuries. Well, not Putin, but Russian.
Last time I was in Vilnius, I took a picture of a house where a certain Bobołowicz lived. I'm not sure if he was my family or not, but well, it's not such a common name, so probably we have some connections. So I understand fully this Rzeczpospolita blood, as you called it. That's also what actually unites us with Belarusians and with Ukrainians, as they also were a part of this Commonwealth, although not as a fully recognized member until a moment. But what happened that allowed us finally, after many years of struggle with this Polish minority, that allowed us to have finally quite good relations? Because if I'm not mistaken, I would say that our Polish-Lithuanian relations are the best in our history, modern history.
Yes, the best, but it also reminds us the golden age of the same kings who are behind us. Before century, like in 16th century, it was a golden age of Vilnius. Zygmunt Augustus and some other kings, they liked living in Vilnius and in Krakow before capital moved to Warsaw. It was a harmony, and I would say, when I discuss it with a lot of friends, discussed it with a lot of friends who died in Smolensk, I always try to remind Poles, please lead our region, but always respect our differences, always respect our identity. Because sometimes when Poles start behaving like Russians, we react. We live in this region for centuries, and we know how to defend us. So we better learn from our enemies how not to make mistakes. And yes, we did mistakes in our Rzeczpospolitan Empire. We did not recognize the identity of Ukrainians. And finally, Kazakhs, when they turned to Russia, they burned our state. So now we have a chance to correct those historic mistakes. Now we have a historic chance to have even 4 states: Poland, Lithuania, Belarus, and Ukraine. And now I'm citing my old good friend Michał Kamiński, your deputy Speaker of Senate, who was recently in Vilnius and said, imagine 100 million people with very similar experience of bloodland nations, but having their own 4 separate states today, but speaking and thinking more or less in one voice. We have one enemy, one mission. We have one understanding of this world. And if we act united inside European Union, or maybe one day in NATO, we are much more than Germany. We are bigger than Germany or France. Maybe then we will not be so much afraid of Brussels going deeper in deepening our integration, because I remember when my President Adamkus and late President Kaczynski was going to Brussels. I was one of them, one of those who kept this duo working together. And I remember the not maybe the fear, but respect in the eyes of Chancellor Merkel and then President Sarkozy, who before meeting EU 28, I think that was still Britain in, They were meeting with us. We were together with Poland as big as France and Germany. Because we were blocking a lot of stupid French and German decisions, like to embrace Putin, though he was killing all freedoms and democracies or invading Georgias. We couldn't agree with this. Nobody was listening us then. But imagine if it's not only Lithuania and Poland. Imagine this is also Ukraine and Belarus. Imagine we are already, as Lithuanians, we are part of very cozy Nordic Baltic club, very rich club, very effective club. Today we are like Lithuania, 90% of the average. We are much richer than most of our neighbors, including Poland, sorry to say, but also most of all the member states. And we go like this with this Nordic Baltic character. And also, one difference from Poland today, I hope this difference will disappear with this coalition. We do not play with communist China. I always try to provoke my Polish brothers and sisters with some saying that, John Paul II would turn in his grave to see Poland playing with biggest communist of this planet. So I mean communist in Chinese, trying to be a gateway of Chinese dirty money to European Union. We in Lithuania decoupled from China as we decoupled from Russia. We are completely independent and we play very well with Taiwan. Taiwan invests, actually, we are the only country in this planet with whom Taiwan shares technology of semiconductors. When you land in Vilnius, you can see blue, great buildings. This is so-called Silicon Valley of Taiwan. Taiwan invests into our fintech area. That is the best in European Union because every 10th European is using Lithuanian fintech technologies today. Brits, they are number two. They are number one. We are number two. They invest into our lasers, biotechnologies. To make it blunt, we do not play with communists in Lithuania. We do not play with autocracies in Lithuania because we learned what they did with us, actually, when we adopted our constitution. We play with democratic and liberal and most advanced and innovative and creative Indo-Pacific nations. We're the first country that, together with Americans, concluded Indo-Pacific strategy. When China attacked us heavily, introduced all possible sanctions. When we went to Poland to ask for assistance, I will not mention that high official, he said, sorry, we will not help you because we want to be Chinese gateway to Europe. Well, it was sad, but we survived, and we survived much better than China predicted. Today, we are richer than Poland because we do not play with Huawei's, we do not play with autocracies, we do not build our national muscles just with whoever is doing it because it's very urbanist. We don't want to be another Hungary. We want to be free, beacon of freedom, and we are. And we hope Poles are following our example this time.
Unfortunately, I think that our cooperation with China diminished a bit after recent events, after Russian invasion. We are not cooperating so much with China as we used to. Don't you fear? But it's also an important question because you said this beautiful vision of union of cooperation, close cooperation between Poland, Lithuania, Ukraine, Belarus, of course, free Belarus, of course, Ukraine after the victory. But don't you fear that we have different interests, economical interests, such as between Poland and Ukraine? We have this whole agriculture problem, and it's really problem. We are going to compete on the European market as soon as Ukraine is on this market fully. But right now we are already competing on this market, and that just money, just economical interest will divide us.
Yeah, I agree very much with you, but still one sentence on China. I see moves of new Polish government towards free and democratic world of Indo-Pacific, but until Poland is staying in this format so-called 14+1. It was 17+1, but Baltic states left the format where post-Soviet states are playing dances or waltzes with Beijing. When I see Poland leaving that format, I will believe what you say. Until now, Poles are trying to play on two chairs: big Chinese chair and liberal democratic chair. And this is very dangerous chair, because some Poles are trying to say that, oh, this way they will try to control China. I would like to see the laughing face of this Chinese communist who understands clearly that if investments of China is reaching more than 10 or 13% in the country, China starts to control the country, as they more or less control Belarus already, and play big games even with Germany, France. So let's better learn from those mistakes. Now, turning back on Ukraine. Yes, and this is very sad, because we also see Russian games in Polish agricultural, peace may be created, resistance against Ukraine. And this is very sad to see Ukrainian grain spilled on Polish territory, knowing, how much blood Ukrainians actually spilled to defend Lithuanian and Polish freedom. You just watch the movie Mariupol. I just watched it 2 days ago, and that's much more than I saw at TV Tower in 91. I was one of those who was protesting against those Russian tanks who killed my friends, but it's nothing to compare what Ukrainians are fearing. So yes, I see Central European countries, including Poland, as one of the biggest problems, honestly, of Ukrainian accession to European Union, because as Baltic states, as Nordic states, we are ayatollahs of EU enlargement. We know the beauty enlargement created. My salary in 93 was $5 a month. My salary today, I don't know, grew 6,000 times. I'm rich and happy. I have 4 kids, and Lithuania was never as stable as it is, and it is the beauty of EU. So if we keep Ukrainians outside EU, Russians with their biggest export goods, corruption, I mean, they will destroy and attack our territories. They will sooner or later send tanks to Warsaw and Vilnius. Think about that. And it's close if Ukrainians are defeated. And the only guarantee for them not to be defeated is to get them into EU and NATO. So yes, we have to sacrifice some piece of cake that was produced by European money. I remember how difficult it was accession negotiations for Poles to enter European Union. I remember that it was agricultural interests demanding more and more and more money. You got those money. You are rich as hell now in this sector. As our farmers who were complaining, they were not willing to join the European Union. They were protesting against our efforts to join, and now they are much richer than us in Vilnius. So yes, please, think about sacrificing 2 or 3 tractors you have, or 2 or 3 bottles of whiskey, or whatever you are producing for Ukrainians, but it will save your lives. I would cut 1 leg if necessary to save the rest of my body and the future of my kids and their kids. I remember the Poles who really helped Lithuania to get into EU and NATO, because you started it first. You get us in. So be brave, be strategic. We need you guys. We need to lobby Washington, who is rejecting Ukrainian entry into NATO, for example. We failed to convince President Biden in Vilnius to invite Ukrainians to NATO. And then now we are invited to Washington. Your President Duda will be there celebrating the history of NATO. And so what? No invitation to Ukraine. So no future. There is no future of NATO without Ukraine, and there is no future of Ukraine without NATO. And the same with accession talks. It's delayed because Orban blocks membership of Ukraine to EU. But please don't be like Orban. Stay with us, and you are with us. We understand your issues with farmers. Well, your farmers are blocking also our borders, though we introduced even the law not to have Russian grain here, though if it goes against EU legislation. But be strategic. Be like Zygmunt Augustus. Don't be so narrow. Because, like John Paul II was writing about even Vilnius identity, when Lithuanians went narrow, we were, divided and ruled by our enemies. When we go broad, when you go proud and you respect interest of other nations. Sometimes it's called kresy in Poland. We are not kresy. We have very old identities. We live here for centuries and thousands of years. Like Lithuanian language is one of the oldest on this planet. Indian Sanskrit is speaking like us. But okay, you know the differences. And the same with Ukrainians. They were baptized much earlier than Lithuanians. Kiev was created, and Kiev was created as a fortress against those stupid Muscovites who are willing to come and kill and rape our women and take our kids and kill us. So be strategic. Sacrifice part of your interest, but give it for common good. And let's restore the empire we once had between Baltic and Black Sea, and let's destroy the Russian regime who destroyed our history and our future, who took centuries from us, who humiliated and killed us because of nationalism, because of our stupidity and narrowness sometimes. So think broad. Think like Lech Kaczynski was thinking, with whom we understood each other very well.
You mentioned the ban on Russian grain in Lithuania, although it's been reported that after 6 months of the ban on import of Russian grain into Lithuania, in February this year, you started importing it again. Why?
No, we do not start import Russian grain. We noticed some Russian grain going through Latvian ports, but they also introduced the law. All those lies about Russian grain and then blocking Ukrainian borders, I think 50% of them are created by Russian FSB. Be careful with that, and let's better unite our forces like we talked with your Prime Minister Tusk during the meeting with our Prime Minister Ingrida. Very good two Europeans who know each other from our, EPP family. Let's fight together in Brussels to get customs duties, to have new bans, new sanctions against Russian, not only grains, all food products. That we have no sanctions for different food, so-called food products coming from Russia. That generates millions. Unfortunately, during previous governments, 60% of sanctions adopted in Brussels were the sanctions invented by Lithuanians. So let's join our forces to convince Brussels to think Lithuanian Polish way, but no, no new blocks to Ukrainians. No, they are punished by Russians every day. And when I was in Kiev on February 24th, that was the second anniversary of invasion. When at the same time, Kiev was not so much focused on those everyday attacks from Russia, but was focused on blocked Polish-Ukrainian borders, when the whole government was trying to meet with Polish leadership, that was upsetting. I was leading delegation of more or less all chairs of foreign affairs committees, and it was very difficult for me to get through the border because of your farmers, who was on the second anniversary of invasion, blocking Ukraine from the West. This is not good politics. This is not good strategy. I know this is created by internal politics. I know that some stupid radical politicians, they were willing to win elections in the same way. Poles infected some Lithuanian radicals with the idea that we have to block the Belarusian border because they are all Russians. We know all those radical tricks, but we defeat them. In Lithuania, we learn to think strategically, because if we don't think about the strategy, if you don't think about Ukrainians and Belarusians one day joining us, well, you will be defeated, like we were defeated after 3rd of May Constitution. It was nice, great paper. It was nice, romantic idea, but we didn't unite in a way we have a chance to unite now.
You've been Lithuania's ambassador to the US. What do you think? You mentioned that there is some reluctance on the American side towards Ukrainian accession to the NATO. And we've observed for the last months the struggle in the Congress on this bill on the help on the aid to Ukraine. Why? Why is it? Why this reluctance? Why those doubts on in American thinking?
Well, I think Russia is spending a lot of money in Washington right now. And I remember, I think it was Chief of British Intelligence, MI6, to tell openly in one of the conferences I was present that according to intelligence community calculations, Russians will not be able to occupy Ukraine in a way they want, but it's much easier for Russians to occupy NATO capitals. And we see something moving in our capitals, in Warsaw and Vilnius. Even before elections, we also have some stupid anti-Semites, anti-vaxxers, pro-Russian personalities. Out of 8 candidates to president, quite a part of them are pro-Russian. But imagine how much money Russia is spending today in Washington, D.C., trying to take those Republicans or sometimes even Democrats to their side. Yes, I was shocked in Washington, D.C. I was traveling with a lot of Polish friends and other friends to Washington. I am actually doing it more or less every month. But when you see every second Republican speaking like Putin and Lavrov, it makes you shocked. We are all Republicans here. We're revolted because of people like Reagan and John Paul II in Lithuania. We sometimes feel even more Americans than Americans themselves fighting for those values. But that's why I now appeal to Polish American Congress and other Poles living in America. You are the biggest of us, really the biggest. I have maybe 1 million of Lithuanians, so Americans of Lithuanian descent. You have more than 10 million. Central and Eastern European coalition is about 25 million people in America. And we are very important. Our vote is very important. So please use your muscles to help Ukraine. During peacetime, I will speak it openly, Polish leadership and Polish American Congress was working just for Poland. Poland was building its own national military muscles. It's nice. It's great. We envy. We follow you. Your defense spending. But you have to think broader. You have to use your emigration in each state as an army. Join forces with Lithuanian community that I know is ready for that, with Baltic community, with Jewish community, with American Jewish Council, with Cuban community who hates communists, and fight for Ukraine. As you fought for our membership in NATO, it was not easy. Finally, we came to each state, to each Senate, and each congressman, and each, 99 senators out of 100 voted for Lithuanian membership in NATO. But it was a tough fight. You got it first. You went with Bill Clinton with first wave. We went with second wave. It was 2002 Prague NATO summit and Bush to do it. But now, in Bucharest 2008, Ukraine was blocked by Germans and French. But now in Vilnius, I experienced the biggest shock maybe of my political life when I see Biden and Scholz and Orban blocking Ukrainian membership and Macron defending us from Biden. And what about Poles then? Where are you? Where are your demarches to Washington? Where are your speeches in each state of America? Brits are doing it. French are doing it today. Lithuanians are doing it. But you are the biggest of us. Please lobby. Please help Ukrainians. And also think about Lithuanians themselves. We have a Suwalki gap, and we are trying to show you the example we create with Germans in Lithuania. Germans are building a brigade, a wonderful, great military base. We just made a deal with Rheinmetall to produce German ammunition in Lithuania. Why not with Poles? I am elected in Vilnius. This is my electoral district, the new parts of Vilnius. And every voter I meet asks me, why not with Poles? And consider this question from Lithuanians living in Vilnius. Lithuanians from Vilnius are asking for Polish military. So this is a new generation that breaks all the stereotypes. We're not afraid anymore of your military. We want to do something with you. For example, we have this Lithuanian Polish Ukrainian brigade. It's just command element close to Lublin. But why don't we build it as division? Why don't we add as a brigade from each country? Why don't we have Polish troops together with Lithuanians and maybe one day with Ukrainians standing in Suwalki Gap and sending a very strong message to any Belarusian or Russian soldier? Just try it, and you will see what happens. So think about Ukrainians and think about Lithuanians in your security and defense agendas you build. Do not build only your national muscles. Build common muscles like Zygmunt Augustus was building. That was Polish and Lithuanian muscles we built, and we had great victories together. We burned Moscow not even once.
I should probably tell you that I'm actually in Lublin right now, and yes, in fact, there is this headquarters of this brigade are here. I even tried to reach out to them, but unsuccessfully. However, I have another question. In Poland, what we saw at the borders, those protesters, blockades. This is a part of our society. Not everyone thinks like this. It's a minority, of course, but the fact is that the sentiment of some kind of tiredness with the war, with giving aid to Ukraine, is growing in the society. Our society is less and less willing to help Ukraine, less willing to engage fully. How is it in Lithuania? Is it the same, or are you still on the high level of engagement towards Ukraine?
We are still on a high level, and it shows our support, military support to Ukraine. Baltic states, like one of the highest contributors per capita, up to 2% of our GDP goes to Ukraine, despite our military defense that is up to 3%, not like 4% like in Poland, but still. But I would maybe say this to those tired Polish voters. Yeah, you could be tired. You could adopt this ostrich policy. You could put your head into the sound and think that nothing will, nothing will happen. But then those tanks will find you. The foreign policy and defense policy of which you are tired will find you, but without your participation. They will just come and kill and rape and take everything from you. Cost of war is unimaginable. Today, when I see those farmers or whoever protesting against Ukrainians, I always remember Britain. Britain before Second World War was spending like 3% to defense. During the war, it was 40%. The cost of war is tremendous when you lose your son or daughter or wife or, I don't know, mother, father, village. Look to us. We've been kings. My own grandfather, was sent to Siberia because he was great, wonderful Lithuanian intellectual. My grandmother was wonderful opera singer, but everything was taken from us. They tried to make us slaves, and they really they hurted our souls and families. So the cost of war is not even for one generation; it's for many generations ahead. So let's better spend those money, everything we have if necessary, just to protect the future, the wonderful future we created, and also stay rational. I'm former deputy chief negotiator. I coordinated our accession talks in Brussels for 3.5 years. I was so-called co-secretary of accession talks together with some Pole, maybe Maciej Popowski. He's a big boss now in Brussels. And yes, agriculture was the toughest part. Like 2 meters of paper in my office, very difficult paper, difficult to read. But you deal rationally. We will have time in during accession negotiations with Ukraine that I hope starts in June. I really hope, and please help us to start it in June before Orban has its own stupid presidency. That because remember, Polish presidency is coming after Hungarian, and we will have time around the table, all EU 27, together with Ukrainians, dealing with all the details. We will really find rational solutions. Of course, it will not be like open door, and then, of course, like Prime Minister Tusk was explaining to Lithuanian government, really, we have to consider those young agricultural businesses in Poland created in those 20 years. Of course, they shouldn't be hurt, but we will have to find a wise compromise. I think we will have to reform common agricultural policy because it's still much better to have Ukrainians with us, to have such a buffer for Muscovites not to come. And please always remember your own wonderful Pole, my best friend, Zbigniew Brzezinski, who before dying was, always, it was one of the first points of any Lithuanian to come to Washington. And, his wise saying that without Ukraine, Russia will never become an empire and Russia will never actually attack us. So do everything now. Let's think. Actually, today I will have a school lesson for different Lithuanian schools. I will try to say to them that next decade is an Ukrainian decade. Let's be ready. Every ministry, every municipality, every farmer, every voter. Let's do it together. It will be hard. It will be difficult, but we are creative and strong enough. We learned from history and also our mistakes. Let's find rational solutions how to get Ukrainians into our family. Some rules, do it rationally without protest, without provoking their national feelings, without blocking their borders. Do it around the table. We are not animals. We are civilized people. If we manage to create the European Union of close to 500 million people, the only great postmodern experiment of this planet, show me another region, another continent that has such a beauty. Nobody has it. Nobody. So we will be wise and experienced enough to deal with our Ukrainian brothers because finally it will be the biggest Polish and Lithuanian benefit to have them behind them. Finally, Poles will not be afraid of Berlin. Even with all your nice Weimars, you still sometimes demand some compensations from the history. So, better not to demand something from the past, but create the future. And Ukrainians, those are our future and the end of Russian Empire. And this is something every Lithuanian and Pole would pray before dying from Russian swords and Russian bullets. So remember, those who died from them. You have to get Ukrainians into EU and NATO. And without Poland, we will not be able to do it. You are the leader. You are the biggest of us. Maybe Lithuania, sometimes we have a bigger heart. But, we have to do it together.
Just to end, I have one more question. I would like to ask you. You mentioned before some politicians using those tensions, using those protests to their own good, and we are actually facing upcoming European elections, elections to the European Parliament. How strong do you think Russia will try to interfere, to meddle in those elections, and in what way?
Very, very strong. In a way, they do it in Washington right now. I think they're working now hard with all our radicals, anti-Europeans. They want to be as strong as hell. So when you make a choice, always in Poland also, vote for pro-European candidate. If you vote for any kind of Brexit, Polish exit, Orban type of politicians, you vote for Russia or China, who will finally come and kill you. We don't. Well, I remember my first foreign minister. I was a diplomat for 23 years. I was one of those who was dealing the most with European Union. I was remembering his first speeches. He was appealing to my party. We are like Peace and Platforma together. We are the strongest center right party. He was appealing to our party members and saying, I know you are afraid to join European Union. I know you think this is Europe of gays and it's, well, but guys, look around. If you want to consolidate your independence, your freedom and identity, and if you don't want to become Belarus, we have to join. So, let's strengthen our European beauty. This is the only way that keeps Russians out. EU and NATO. We have to be strong as hell, I agree. We have to invest into defense like Poles are investing, but we have to think strategically and make Baltic and Black Sea back to Europe. And if we do it, all those who live in Lublin and remember how we did it in Lublin together in 16th century, well, everybody will be happy. Let's create that paradise that actually Lithuanians and Poles created in Middle Ages. They, in Brussels, in Paris and Germany, they just copy our great example. But let's be leaders, because if we do it, guys, together, the shift of decision making will shift to Warsaw and Vilnius and Ukraine, and maybe even Minsk, though it sounds so terribly impossible right now. But I remember Karl Bildt saying that Kiev will become a capital of European Union. Well, I'm not so sure, but I'm quite sure with Warsaw, it might connect all the regions. If you play wise, not only with Weimar, triangle, but never forgetting Lublin triangle. If you have Lublin and Weimar triangle, and Lithuanians will bring you Nordic Baltic dimension, and we all have our Anglo-Saxon ties, and we are very much respected in Washington. If you follow Lithuanian example in Indo-Pacific, we can unite the front lines of this planet. And it will be us, Lithuanians and Poles, doing it.
From the Union of Lublin to the European Union, as John Paul II said in 2003. Thank you very much. Our guest was Žygimantas Pavilionis, chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee in Lithuanian Seimas and former ambassador of the Lithuania to the US and Mexico. Thank you very much.
Thank you. For our freedom and yours, as our predecessors were saying.
If you like this interview, please subscribe to our channel and click the bell and so you will be notified when our new interviews are published. And if you want, you can also support us on patronite.pl/czarne niebo. It's written here on the screen. It's in Polish, but you can still donate a small sum towards our symbolic coffee.